This is a story I like to call Somebody's Stephen. So one day, here's how the story goes. My husband had a pair of old tennis shoes and he was walking through the kitchen with them and he was going to throw them away. And I said, "You're throwing those away? They look good." And he goes, "Oh, I'm tired of them. I need something updated." And I said, "Well, give them to me. I'll put them in my car. You never know. I might see somebody who wants them." So I put him in my car and I drove up to the light by my house, waiting for the light to turn green. Right then, I saw a tall gentleman, obviously shattered and tattered, um, street person. And I quickly backed away from the light, pulled over, and parked. And I saw him coming, so I still had time to run in my trunk and grab the shoes and come out. And I said, "Hi." I said, "My name is Rebecca. What's yours?" He said, "Stephen." I said, "Oh, that's my son's name." And so I said, "Stephen, would you like these shoes?" And he looked at them and he said, "Yes." He said, "Thank you so much." He was so kind, and there was this sweetness in his face. Yet I could see he was troubled. And so he took the shoes. And he really touched me for some reason. I don't know what it was, but maybe it was the name Stephen. And as I drove to the gym, I saw him walking down the street and he sat down at a bench and he was putting the shoes on. And as I drove away, I started to get really emotional. I said, "That's somebody's Stephen, somebody's boy lost." Okay, so then, around town, I would see Stephen. He'd be coming out of the bushes here and he'd be, walking along trying to pick up cigarette butts and things like that you see homeless people doing. And one day it was really raining. And so I had an extra umbrella in my car. So I pulled up, I saw Stephen. I pulled up, I said, "Stephen." He said, "Hi, Rebecca." He knew my name. And I said, "Stephen, I have an umbrella for you." And he said, "Thank you very much." He took it. And I thought, "Oh, well, he's my new best friend. I'm going to make Stephen my Stephen." Well, fast forward several years later, I'm still seeing Stephen. I've had many encounters with Stephen. And by the way, whenever you see a homeless person, be sure and ask them their name. I had a homeless person once say to me, "It's the first time I've heard my name spoken in years." And I said, "I will never reach out to another person that I don't ask his name." So, anyway, Stephen and he knew me, I knew him. So, there were many stories about Stephen, but there's a couple that are really near and dear to me. One, it was Christmas, and I was going to buy Stephen Christmas presents, and it was cold. So I went and I shopped at like TJ Maxx and different places, Marshalls, trying to find him a nice warm up outfit because I could see that he looked cold. So I finally found this beautiful blue heavy jacket and some long pants. And then I bought him a candle that was battery operated. And I wrote on the side of it, "Jesus," and on the other side, "Loves you." So I was very excited and I told my kids, "Oh, these are for Stephen." So I wrapped them all nice and fun and I put them in a big bag with the candle on the top that said Jesus. So I drove around, drove around, drove around. I didn't see him, and it was like almost Christmas. So it was like 3 days before Christmas, and all of a sudden there's Stephen. So I pulled into a shopping center and I grabbed the bag. I walked out on the sidewalk, and one of the things I knew about Stephen was that he was demon possessed. And the story's too long to tell, but every time I would talk to him and mention the name Jesus, he would get this snarly look on his face. And I knew that that was demonic. So I never wanted to be anywhere alone with him, but I did want to still love on him. And hopefully someday, maybe some men would minister to Stephen. So I saw him, I came up to him, I said, "Stephen, Merry Christmas. I have some presents for you." And I gave him the bag. Well, when he looked inside and saw the name of Jesus, he dropped the bag. And I said, "Stephen, they're for you." And he just stood there staring at the bag. So I said, they're yours. Pick them up. And I realized that it was Jesus. So I turned it over. So it said, love you. And he picked it up. Okay. So I got back in my car and I thought, oh, he's going to be warm. And I'd go to bed at night and I'd think about Stephen being warm. Well, after Christmas, I looked for Stephen. There's Stephen. No coat, no pants. I thought, those demons probably had him take that and throw it in a Dipsy dumpster somewhere. Darn. Ugh. So I was really bummed. So all of January, no jacket, no pants. All of February, no jacket, no pants. It's March. It's still chilly in the morning. So I'm going to Bible study, and in the Bible study, I'm the leader of the group. And somebody mentioned that she thought her mother was demon possessed. And so we talked about that, and I brought up Stephen. And then I got really emotional and I told him the story of the jacket and the coat and everything. And so they said, well, let's pray for Stephen. So we all held hands, the whole group, about 15 women prayed for Stephen. So I'm driving home from church and I look to my left and there's Stephen, 3 months after Christmas, with my jacket and my pants. I started crying so hard I had to pull over and just cry. I was so happy. The women prayed and there he was. That was no coincidence. So I was so excited because my husband knew I was bummed. My kids knew I was bummed. So my husband's at work and I call him on the phone and I'm crying. I go, honey, guess what? He goes, what's the matter? Is there something wrong with the kids? I said, no, Stephen's wearing my jacket and my pants. And he goes, oh, for Pete's sake, my goodness, I thought something had happened to the children. I said, no, you don't understand. I said, we just prayed for him. And an hour later, there he is with the coat and the pants. And my husband kind of said, well, that's nice, dear. I'm glad you're happy. Now I got to get back to work. Click. I went home and I told Eric and I told Stephen, and they were so happy with me because they knew how much Stephen meant to me. So now you know part of the story of Stephen. Here's part 2. So here's part 2 of the story. So one day I'm driving by Target and there's Stephen on the sidewalk. And there's some woman with her arms around him and she hands him something. And I'm like, she's hugging my Stephen. So I pulled my car up, turned around and I parked. And he was still there talking to her. And I walked up quickly and I said, how do you know Stephen? And she goes, oh, I've been ministering to Stephen for like 10 years. I go, me too. He's my Stephen too. And she said that. And so he turned around, walked away. So I said, who are you? And she told me her name. And she said, yeah, I've been, like ministering to him and telling him about Jesus and, giving him things. I said, me too. I said, oh my gosh, I just love you. And I don't even know you. And I said, isn't it sad that he's still out here like this? We've both been ministering to him. And she said, no, it's really not sad because Stephen hasn't hit bottom. I thought, hit bottom? Where do you have to be to hit bottom? He's filthy, dirty. He's got dirt under his nails. His pants are stained, stuff on his teeth. I mean, he's so pathetic. And she said, I used to be him. I said, what? She said, yeah. She goes, let me tell you my story. She said, I was a drug addict living in Los Angeles as a girl in her 20s. And she said, one night it was pouring down rain. I was downtown LA. And I saw an old abandoned building downtown LA. So it had a hole in the porch where the trellis was. And I thought I could climb in there and get out from under the rain. She was cold and wet. So she said, when I climbed in there, it was full of spider webs and I saw all these demonic faces. And I scooted back out, she said, and I just sat there in the rain crying from all that, what I just saw under that porch, trying to get the spider webs off of her. And she said, I looked to my right and there was a little chapel with a light on in the back. And a voice said, go to the light. She said, I got up, I went back and the front door was locked. So I went around the back where I saw the light. And she said I could see in. There was an old man sitting at a desk, but the door was locked and he didn't seem to hear me. So I saw a window open about this much. So she said, I lifted the window and I was going to climb in. And she said, I literally fell into it. And he looked up, surprised to see me. And he was a pastor of this little church. And he said, follow me, I can help you. Well, there was a women's shelter right across the street. And they were working together, this chapel and the women's shelter. So he took her by the hand. He took her to the shelter. Women prayed over her. Women loved on her, told her about Jesus. And she became a born-again Christian. And I said, oh, what an amazing story. I said, every time I tell my Stephen story, I'm going to tell your story as part of it. And so I said, can I pray for you? She said, yes, of course. So I put my arms around her and I started to pray. I told her how much God loved her and I just loved on her and I don't even know what I prayed. But at the end of the prayer, I said, your Father in heaven adores you. And she went, oh! She gasped and pulled away from me. And I said, what's the matter? She said, oh my gosh. She said, I have waited my whole life to hear that my Father adores me. I never had a father. I said, oh my goodness. And I started to cry and she started to cry and we just held each other. And then we just said, well, I'm going to go now. And she got back in her car. She had a little doggy in the back and off she went. And after she left, I went, oh my gosh, I didn't even get any contact information or anything. And off she went. I don't know. Maybe she was another angel loving my Stephen. Now I have to tell you how this story ends.